Hey friends, it's TJ. Welcome back to another episode of Tea with TJ, and today I have a special guest, Mr. William Moore.
Howdy!
Welcome to the pod. So if you could just quickly tell me your story.
That's my story. No, I'm kidding. Hi, my name is William Sinclair Moore. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Born and raised. I had two parents in the household. They were high school sweethearts. I went to school at Southern Methodist University, studied acting, moved home, fell into a deep, dark depression, moved to New York City, stayed 6 months, moved back home, fell into a deeper, darker depression. Then I moved to Connecticut with my ex, which, you met. That was back when she was went to school at Yale. And then I moved to New York again with my best friend, and I've been here since. Wow. Trying, creating, exploring. Yeah.
I don't think I knew that you had come and gone from New York that many times.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah. But you know, when you move to New York so young, I just didn't know anything. I didn't know what to do for work. I was just winging it.
Yeah, no,
that's why.
I definitely get that. I mean, the city is a beast sometimes. So I'm so grateful to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here. Also, this is really good. You know, the tea is teaing.
Here's the thing. People sleep on the tea portion of Tea with TJ. By the way, we're having a masala chai today. But people really be kind of sleeping on it. And I'm like, I know how to pick tea. The whole purpose of the show is to also have a nice hot beverage for you.
Do you have just a cupboard filled with different types of tea?
Usually, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love that.
I have a little bit of variety. But when we talked about having you on the show, I presented with you a bunch of topics to choose from, and you chose air quotes.
Yeah.
The many faces of you, kind of dissecting your front-facing personality or persona to the outside world, to family, to friends, creatively, professionally, which I think is a really cool topic to discuss with someone like you, because I have been witness to, both in person and via social media, kind of this myriad of things that you do as a creative. So what would you say are your top three personas that you inhabit?
I am beautiful. No, I'm kidding. No. I would consider myself to be an actor. I would consider myself to be a spiritualist, a New Age spiritualist to be specific, and I guess a podcaster right now, but I dibble and dabble in so many different, it's really hard. I like taking pictures too. I love writing. I like singing. I'm scared to sing in front of people, but I really, I like to sing too. Yeah. You said 3, but I gave you 5.
No, that's fine. I love it. I love it. That gives us more latitude. I want to go back because I think there are portions of this, and this is exactly why I feel like this is the perfect conversation to have with you. I don't think I knew about the spiritualist thing. So what exactly does that mean for folks listening and watching? What does that actually mean?
A healer.
Okay.
A healer using many different modalities. I dibble and dabble in tarot. I do yoga. I play with sound bowls. Just any type of way, like I talked about before when I was going through my deep, dark depressions, the 2 chapters of that, I had to figure out how to pull myself out. And those different ways were the ways that I did it. And now I use those as practices to help me live more fully now.
I love that. I've always wanted to have a sound bath, I think is the correct phrase.
Yeah.
But it's always been of interest to me. And I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, that sound has always kind of been very present in my life and done something for me. And I can't explain it. I don't know if it's like the vibrational thing or the frequencies or whatever it is. But when I was a kid, I was drawn to music. And as I've gotten older, I've picked up on like the sound of whooshing trees in the wind and like the sound of rainfall and water rushing down like a stream or something. First of all, I'm going to
also want to say you're a vocalist, so that makes sense.
Well, yeah,
and also you played an instrument, right? Like you were, so that makes sense. So go ahead.
Do you, like, I don't know how to phrase this because I've never experienced it. Do you take sound baths, or what is the correct phrase?
No, I mean, that is it, but it's not like you're jumping into a tub.
Right.
I mean, you kind of are because there's so many different sounds that can heal us. That's like when people, sometimes when people want to go to sleep, they use rain. Like there's certain different frequencies that make us feel different things. I remember when I was in college, I watched an interview where Erykah Badu said that in her first album, she actually used certain frequencies in certain songs to make the listener feel different things.
Oh, wow.
So it's real. Take your sound bath.
Yes.
That's so funny. I've never heard anyone say take.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to phrase this because
it is a sound bath, and yeah.
But it's always been of interest to me because I think there is. I have a friend that I spoke to you about before we started recording. My friend Justin Nelson, who has also been on the podcast, who has a podcast called Adjusting. Check it out. But he very much has entered into this space in his life where he is very much in alignment with his chakras and like making sure that those do not fall out of alignment. And if they do, making sure he can do things to get those back. And I have heard in my tiny research when it comes to sound baths, because again, I want to do it. I haven't figured out where to go, where to start. Hopefully, Will, you can teach me some things.
You just do it. You just do it. You just start.
But I have heard stories and kind of seen some stuff online about just how that can actually heal you and get your chakras back in alignment. Have you experienced any of that on your own? Or?
Yeah, I think the thing that I would say about chakras is that they're never fully in alignment. I feel like when we live as people, like let's say, I don't know, like I'm outside and I experience something like I trip and fall or something, like automatically that knocks me off my balance. The point of like the different spiritual practices is that it brings you back, but then something else will happen to you.
Yep.
I always like to say that because I feel like sometimes when people think about healing, they think it's possible to just be like this all the time, and just it's not possible.
You know, I mean, I can only imagine. I'm like thinking about my own life, where again, I am not well versed in this space, but in thinking about like the crown chakra, my third eye, the throat chakra, I feel like my throat chakra is usually good.
You're well versed enough.
I'm still learning. I feel like what kind of like throws me off balance the most is my root chakra. I don't know why, but I feel like that is the thing that like kind of messes with me. And so a lot of times I try to make sure that I am grounded as much as possible. But I feel like because of the world we live in and because of the things that happen, that is always the one that I feel like I'm a little shaky.
It's all based in your beginning. That's why people, when they want to work on chakras and they're like, oh, like I want to start up here, it's like, no, you need to start at the foundation, the root chakra, because that's where everything is built from. So the root chakra, when that's off balance, that has to do with family. It has to do with home. It has to do with literally the roots of your being, where you come from. So whenever you feel off base, there may be something off base in that, or something that's unhealed from that place that needs to be worked on or being triggered.
Interesting. Well, that explains a lot. That's interesting. Thank you. I did not know that.
There you go.
So with these different pieces of you that exist, what has kind of been I would say, the most present or forward facing amongst all of them?
Like, you mean like in my life, I guess?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm always a performer.
Okay.
I remember I was in New York and like auditioning and not booking anything. And my best friend told me, she was like, you know, like no matter what, like you're always a performer. Cause like you're born one. Yeah. When you are one, it's just, it just is like, you can feel it when you see somebody or like when you interact with them, it's like, oh, like they do this or they do art or something. You can feel it. So I think I was born to do that. And I think all of that sort of bleeds into everything that I do. Even in just living, like I even feel kind of performative, like just walking down the street sometimes, because I think that's just how our brain works. But
absolutely. I was gonna say, I think one of our first encounters when we first met, I got the sense of even though, because I want to say the first we met and like went out to dinner for the first time, like I had not actually interacted with you yet, but had heard of you. And I want to say, like, whatever that encounter was, I can't remember the restaurant that we were at, but I very much was like, I feel like you're a storyteller. Like, I feel like there's something here that you're not telling me, or in this moment you're choosing not to show. Do you find that you kind of shield some of those pieces of you when you meet people or engage with certain people?
You know, I feel like when we met, it was a very interesting situation that I was in, because I felt like I was really battling with feeling like worthy of even considering myself to be a performer. When you experience so much rejection, when you experience people like not really seeing you, it sort of makes you feel like, whatever. You know what I mean? But like you say, you can kind of feel it anyway. So it's not on purpose, but I think what you emanate has to do with how you feel and what you feel about yourself. I
agree. I feel like there is something unique about an artist, a creative, a performer, that you can sense. Like, I agree with you in that statement that there's just something there that's palpable.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, but it's pure, like, energetically. Like, it is, I don't know. Because I can always tell, even when I'm not in New York and I go other places and I meet someone, I'm like, you're not, I don't mean this in a kind of way, but you're not normal.
Yeah.
Like, there's something there.
You're not normal. You're not average.
You know, like.
But that's real though. And it's no shade. But like, I feel like there's an artist and then there's like an average person. I feel like artists' brains, like it like operates on a different level.
I agree. Yeah.
Which changes how we express ourselves and like,
they're very animated. And I don't mean to say that in a weird way, but like very animated, very usually very present and very aware, very observant. And there is always color to their stories, which I love. Because I'm like, when you meet someone and you encounter them for the first time, or as you're even getting to know someone, I feel like you have an opportunity to really kind of shape the perspective, not in a bad way, but you really get a chance to shape the perspective of you or the other person. And I feel like those are the moments where I'm like, oh yeah, like you're giving me like something special here that you probably wouldn't give someone else. I love that. Would you say that with these multiple parts of you, what has kind of either needed the most, like love or attention or specificity amongst them, or what has needed like time?
Starts crying. No, I'm kidding. No, okay. What parts? I'm going to take one of those words.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times I'm going to take that question and kind of like, I think I'm answering it. What I feel like in my artist self, there are like different stages. If that makes any sense. You with me? Okay. So I feel like I'm really, really strong in the like, in my brain, in creation. And then the next point when it comes to like actualization, like actually taking it from here and putting it out here, that requires so much more work, so much more specificity, and so much more love. So kind of like all the words that you said, I feel like when there's a part of your artist self, or let's just say your inner child, when it experiences a trauma, or it's told that it's not worthy, or it's told that it's not deserving, it takes work to bring it to a space where it's like, yeah, it's okay. Like, you're not gonna die if you put this out. No one's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
No one's going to harm you, even if it's bad.
Yeah.
Which I don't be making nothing bad. I don't, like, you know, but even if it was, like, nothing bad is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like my podcast, Saves the House Down, an Audible original.
Yes.
That was a rebirth for me. Like figuring out how to take an idea and actually put it out, because when you're a kid, it's so easy. You don't have all of that stuff like or baggage. Yeah. So I think that place within my artist self, it needs even more just pushing and coaxing and like work and love and yeah.
I say that is definitely something that I have learned in the past, I think, almost year of being in therapy, and finally realizing that my inner child is very wounded. And it's crazy because I was talking to my best friend the other night, and I was watching I Love Lucy. And
why the throat clear?
Sorry. I was watching I Love Lucy, and we were on the phone, and he was asking me what I was watching, and I was telling him, I was like, I'm watching Lucy. And I realized in the moment, I was like, wow, I'm deeply connected to the show via my childhood, because I would watch it every night before bed, and I knew if it was on, I was supposed to be asleep.
That's me in Sex and the City, but keep going.
Because there was Nick at Night would come on, and I think it was I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, Dick Van Dyke, and then I Love Lucy. And I think because all of those shows are like half hours, so there was like a 2-hour time frame, and I was like, I have to watch Lucy. Like, if I'm up, I gotta just watch it. Like,
you was up and you was grown, okay?
Yeah. And this is like 12-year-old me.
Yeah.
But I realized how connected that show is to my childhood, and how there's still so much stuff around that I'm still discovering now. But in this whole journey that I've had over the past year of being in therapy, I've realized I was like, there's just so much baggage that I did not realize was there, that I'm now, pulling shit out of the suitcase and trying to figure out, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? Oh, this makes me feel some kind of way. What do I do with this? Exactly. So it's a very interesting place to be. And I think the more we can, as artists, as creatives, the more we can acknowledge that and be present with it, I think most of us will come out the other side better than we planned.
That, now that I think about that visual of like taking you literally in a, can I curse?
Yeah.
A clusterfuck of like being or experiencing like being triggered and stuff like that, like you really don't know what to do with all the feelings. So it does give
Yeah.
oops, sorry. But you know,
Yeah.
all of that. And it's like, yeah, but that's going back to the different practices and stuff and about like how like all those different things can kind of like help. But then also, I feel like we were talking about this earlier. It's a point where before that, people don't necessarily know how to get to the space to even. What if you're so down that you can't pick up a sound bowl? You're so down that you can't write in your journal. What do you do?
Yeah, Joe, let me tell you something. This is why the show is called Tea with TJ, because I have looked at the bottom of a mug many a times, not knowing what to do. And that has been, I mean, living in New York, being on tour, you know, being in the middle of this country, in the middle of nowhere, in cornfields, and trying to be like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? Why is this moment happening right now? And I think that's, I mean, granted, you know, that was in my early 20s. So it was a different time. But I say that to say that, like, you're navigating so much already in that space.
Yeah.
So then to have all of these triggers that are affecting you in real time while you're trying to pursue your dream, live your life, pay bills, live in this giant ass city amongst millions, trying to stand out and trying to be something and make something of yourself. You know, you don't have time to go back and pull out all of this stuff from the suitcase, right? You're trying to just survive.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
What do you think? So now that you're like, your distance from how old were you? Like 20?
I mean, it's various stages, but like my first,
The cornfield specifically.
that was 23, 24, somewhere
What do you
there.
think you were doing there?
I know now that I had to be there. I had to be
Why?
there to get here because it taught me a lot in the bigger picture of thing. And I will say this, that I've always been the optimistic type of person and always looking at the bigger picture of like, yes, this moment sucks that I'm currently in right now, but how does this affect my life as a whole? Like 20 years from now, will I be able to reflect on this and say, I actually needed this to happen because this affected this, and then this turned into this, and then this helped me get to this. Instead of throwing my hands up and saying, well, fuck it all. I'm just going to cut everything off and get the fuck out. But in that moment specifically, I think it allowed me, because I'm just going to share what it was.
I was like, yeah, what is this?
I was on this tour, Cliff of the Big Red Dog, and I had been going back and forth from the tour to New York to audition for the Rent National Tour.
Oh,
and it
period.
was the non-union tour, but it was the Broadway version of that like 25th anniversary thing that had just happened. And so the cities like were still like A-list cities. So there were big cities and like a lot of recognition. You were still getting the original director from the show and all this kind of stuff. Like something that would have propelled me forward.
Yeah.
And I was flying back and forth and got to final callbacks. I was like, oh shit, I'm about to book this. Like I'm about to be fucking Benny in the Rent National Tour. I can't believe I've gotten here. And did my callback, went back to the tour. I think we were in California at the time. And waited. And we were like driving across the country. And I remember finally getting the email saying that we've gone in a different direction. And being very, very heartbroken.
Yeah.
And disappointed and questioning, am I only good enough for children's theater? You know, am I only good enough for stories that are not as complex as I would like them to be? Because in no shade to children's theater, like I'm grateful for that experience looking back on it, because the thing about children's theater is that kids don't lie.
Yeah.
They are honest.
Children's
If it's
theater
funny,
eats.
it's funny. You know, but unfortunately, the industry does not necessarily recognize that specific.
I respect it.
You know.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of self-doubt and a lot of searching and trying to figure out like, well, should I even be doing this? Or Do I need to go back to New York? Like, what am I doing? And I remember coming back home to New York, and I think I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and going to a few auditions here and there, and it had been a few months, and I booked Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was weird because, and if everyone's out there who knows me, it was weird because it was one of those giant, massive, like open calls, like 300 people on the list. Like, I hated those auditions.
Yeah. 300
people on the list, but I got seen. Got a call back, but only a dance call back. No sides, none of that. Just the dance call back. I didn't go to the dance call back because I was like, it was for their full season. Because I was like, I know what show I want to do. I know what show I'm right for. I know what role I'm right for. And if I just get an opportunity, I can prove to you that, like, you'll see it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I didn't go to the dance callback. I got another email being like, hey, we'd like to see you for Jesus Christ Superstar for Caiaphas. I said, isn't that convenient? And I remember going into the callback back when they would like pair you with someone to get you like a chemistry read.
Yeah.
And I was paired with two guys, one of which who ended up being my roommate while I was doing that show. But two guys, and I could tell, I was like, neither one of you have these low notes. If this is the three of us, it's gonna be me. And not to sound cocky, but when you know in that moment. But then ultimately booking it, and that probably was my best to date, I think, theatrical experience ever. Yeah.
Well, to more experiences that are just as wonderful and just as amazing.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah. But I think if I had not gone through this kind of low-ish place after the Rent thing and decided to pick myself up and say, no, I want to do this. I know that I'm actually good at this.
Yeah.
I know there's a place for me here. I could have missed out on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I grew up my entire life. This is connecting, I think. But I grew up my entire life sort of being praised for my ability. I was always told that, even in college, oh, you're a beast. You know what I mean? I was always told that. And I think coming into the real world and experiencing oh, damn, you don't like me because I'm fat? Wait a second. Or you don't like me because, whatever. It just a whole bunch of different things that never really played a factor when I was younger because I was telling my friend this the other day. I think I attached myself too much to my talent as a child. I didn't have anything else. I didn't think that I was attractive. I didn't think that I was necessarily smart. I just did, even though I was when I think back, oh, and I was cute too. It's just all these things. Yeah. I just never thought, but I'm talented. And I think I had to experience the world saying no to me for me to sort of engage with the other parts of myself, to engage with the fact that, oh, William, you are beautiful, even if you don't feel it. You are special. You're smart. You're everything. Really, you really are. And I had to learn that. And then I really do think my life got better when I started to after the world told me no, and I started telling myself yes, things started to open up a little.
I love that. I feel like there's we're in alignment with that thought because I feel like I'm entering that stage now because even though I've had this revelation of career-wise, I am confident and good enough and know I have a place in the industry at large, but even just being super, super specific with it, I know, or I've had feelings of, but there are 3 other people who are better than me. Or there are 4 other people who can do it twice as good, twice as fast as me. And I think the space that I've kind of inhabited now is very much what you were saying of trying to realize and understand and comprehend that I am good enough, that I love myself, that I'm smart, so that I can go out there and project that and show that.
And more importantly, ain't nobody TJ.
Yeah. Like, I think
Like,
that's
nobody is you. Nobody is William Sinclair Moore.
Exactly.
You may think, like, you may think, but nobody will do it like how you do it. Nobody will do it how I do it. Like, we're so different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So many different lived experiences. Like, nobody could compare.
Yeah.
You can't compete where you don't compare, as Naomi Campbell says. Like, you know?
Yeah. And I think that is where, at least for me, I feel like that's where it gets a little dicey, because although professionally as an actor, front facing, I can walk into a room confidently and sing my 32 bars and be good. And I'm like, I can come here and do this all day. But the moment that I have to be compared to somebody else, or the moment that I am out in the world just as TJ, not like TJ the performer, there's a whole nother slew of things that exist that I'm like, oh yeah, I have to like remember this in this space too, not just on stage, not just in an audition room. And so that's kind of that space that I'm trying to navigate now, of like, oh yeah, like I have to put these on the other pieces of me too.
What do you think that's rooted in?
I mean, well, going back to where we started this conversation, the root chakra, I think so much of my childhood is probably glazed over. And not on purpose, I think just circumstantially speaking, of like just how I grew up, where I grew up, not having access to certain things. And kind of just existing in an environment where there was very little room for individuality. We were assimilated to be church kids, to be school kids, to be a part of this nucleus of a family, but very little room to explore the things that like were of interest to me.
Are you a PK?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I'm sure multiple people.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, with all of that kind of stuff surrounding everything, I feel like, I expressed learning how to play piano, wanting to learn, but never got a lesson. I expressed my interest in theater, but shout out to Maud, until like middle school, I had never seen a Broadway show. I had never seen a play, like on stage.
Yeah.
Didn't know musicals existed.
Do you think it was like your parents thinking that it wasn't that important, or?
No, I think it is, like, again, I think it's just based off of where I was, because I grew up in Tennessee.
Because there was no access.
Yeah, there was no access to it. It's like the National Tour House had a show maybe every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Especially back then, like we were not listed as like an A city. Like Wicked did not come there, Lion King did not come there until I think when I was, what was it, like 2006, somewhere in there, like before I left. Yeah. So, but that's why it's so important to have access to things and like make sure that we have inclusive programs, and the list goes on and on. But
when I think about my childhood, I really realize there is a reason I am so insane.
Okay.
Or that my brain and my body and my spirit wants to do so many things. My parents, like, I love you, parents. I was doing everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't really focus on anything until high school. And that was when I was like, oh yeah, this theater thing. Like, because I started off in the choir, and then I was getting bullied.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a little bit, like very in the beginning. And I was like, oh, like, I'm not going to go back. So I didn't go back to choir, but then I went to theater. And it was connected to this youth theater that I ended up like graduating from, whatever. I stayed there for 3 years. But the teacher on the first day, he was like, oh, you should stay. You got something. And it really I think we were just doing like improv, but I was like, oh, wow. Okay. But I think like the reason why I do so much shit now is because, in most areas that I tried, like I played football, I played soccer, I played baseball, I did karate, I was on the debate team, I was in theater, I was in choir, I had a stint in the anime club. Like I just like, that girl, no, or
like
that,
talk about the many faces.
Literally, like I was pretty much always affirmed in everyone, so it kind of made it a little confusing. Knowing which way to go. But I think what birthed all those different selves was like people being like, oh, yeah, I see that for you. And then now that I think about it, when like the world tells you no, like in these different selves, it kind of tells you to like close off. So let's say it's somebody who's like super expressive, and then someone like judges that person when they're expressive. It's like, oh wow. Yeah. Like I shouldn't do that anymore. Like I shouldn't. Yeah. I was talking to my now partner, and they were talking about how they would post like these things on social media about, being Jamaican and stuff like that. And somebody told them, oh, that's corny. Like you shouldn't do that anymore. And when I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, like people don't realize like the words that they say, like they could even just be joking, but how that makes someone close off or makes a part of someone close off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I talk about this with my best friend all the time about how words matter. And although some things can be sarcastic and be colored a certain way, unless you are meshed with that person, lead with kindness. Yeah. Lead with compassion. Because you never know how something can actually affect someone.
Even if you gotta be really sure. Because he was telling me like, oh man, like I went so long without actually like giving that up on social media because pieces of us die when they're told no.
Yes.
And pieces of us are birthed when they're told yes. Like so much life lives in a yes.
Yeah. I'm like, the whole reason that I even exist in this form now is because I said yes to pursuing theater. My original plan was to move to California and be a composer.
I feel like I heard this in an episode. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then you were like, this isn't the dream anymore. Yeah. Can you imagine?
That's a different life.
We have but who says that path wouldn't have been like dope too? I just feel like there's so many paths that we can take. And everything is so divine, and everything happens when it's supposed to. Just say yes. Yeah. Don't say no to people.
Well, come on. Well, we are at our time.
What? Already? That's crazy.
So we're gonna do our little last three.
No, I'm kidding. We can.
That was beautiful.
I also have to say, y'all, have TJ make y'all some tea sometime. Seriously, it's so good. It really is. I'm like, can I take a jar? Can I take it home?
Oh, thank you.
But yeah,
the world. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate having you on the show. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
But before we go, where can the folks find you?
You can find me. No, you can find me at Sinclairism on all platforms. So that's SINCLAIRIZM. All platforms. Also at Sage the Collective. That's my podcast. And our podcast is on all streaming platforms. Sage the House Down. Look us up. Me and my best friend Paige.
Love it. All right. So this is the portion of the show before we leave that I like to call the last three. You can answer how freely you want, just to give our folks a little bit of knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah. How do you practice gratitude?
My stomach answered. You know, for a really long while, I had a gratitude journal. And I used to just write down every morning 3 things that I was happy about, or 3 things that made me feel good, because I felt really, really bad. Now it's in the small things. I do this one thing that I saw on Instagram where this dude, he said, you know, when you're giving your money away for food, when you're out, say, thank you, money. And come back soon, okay? And bring friends. And I always do that now. And I think, like, when it comes to gratitude, I like to think of it as like, you know, I hold on tightly, let go lightly. Like, you know, I have it now and I can just release it and it's gonna come back even better. That's how I practice it. Being warm and sweet and nice to things in my brain.
I love that.
So it comes back.
I love that. Where do you find the most peace?
In my authenticity. When I'm pretending, I feel wrong. There's something in my physical makeup or inside my body that I can't be happy unless I'm being authentic. And I feel like there are some people who can, but I can't. I feel the most peace and I feel the most happy when I am living through my authenticity.
I love that. And then final question, where do you feel the most seen?
I feel the most seen when I am speaking. You don't even have to see me. It's so crazy because I feel like it would have been a different answer a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah, but you can hear so much in my voice. My voice tells everything, like I can't lie. You hear where I'm from. You hear my mother. You hear my dad. You hear everything in my voice. I feel the most seen when I'm speaking.
I love that. Well, again, thank you for doing this. This was great. And with that, I'll see you next week.
Bye.